This is the Roller Coaster Podcast, and I'm your host, Lucy Q. Life is a wild ride. It has twists and turns. It's scary, exciting, and downright fun. So throw your head back, arms in the air, and come along with me for the ride.
Life is like a roller coaster, baby, baby. I wanna ride.
Thank you for joining me for episode 111. Recording podcasts for the past couple of weeks has been a little bit of a challenge. It's been super humid here in Nova Scotia. We don't have AC because we've never really needed it before. And when I record, I have to shut my windows and the door to avoid any of the background noise from getting in. It's a little hard to think sometimes when it gets too hot. So today it's a little bit cooler, the humidity's going, but it's nice just to have that fresh air coming in. So I have my window open. If you hear any weird noise, they're coming from my yard. Now, over the past few weeks, we've been exploring the journey of self-improvement, which is the signature course in the newly launched Nectar Growth Network. Look for the link in the show notes or go to nectargrowth.com. That's nectargrowth.com. There are some technical problems going on with it right now. So if you get the GoDaddy page instead of the actual landing page, try coming back a couple of times. I'm still working to resolve it, but it'll get sorted out soon. Now, Nectar is a membership-based platform similar to social media feeds, but we have zero consumer ads and we don't sell your data. It's free to join. So you can start by creating your profile, and if you're not comfortable, you don't have to use your real name. Once you create that profile, jump over to the course section, and that's where you'll find the journey of self-improvement. You can also follow topics, join groups, and we're always adding new content. Nectar is a space where you can learn and grow and connect with new people that will support you on your journey. Because when you start the journey of self-improvement, you're going to find that you're opening up a whole new world. You learn about yourself, and sometimes it's revealed slowly, and other times you get a holy crap moment when you start to see things through a completely new lens. And one of the lessons that stands above all the others is that you need to act in support of yourself. Everything else will flow from that. To do this, you have to learn to accept yourself exactly as you are. Self-acceptance is key, and it involves developing or building on several skills. Unlocking self-acceptance begins with shifting your perception. When I sat in my parents' basement on that fateful day, I was beating myself up for what I saw as every bad decision, mistake, and all the time I wasted. I was judging myself. It's something that we all do. It's that itty-bitty shitty committee that pipes up and drags us down. But every decision, every mistake has led me to exactly where I am or where I was at the time. It was a shitty place to be, but I could use it to my advantage. I could choose to keep doing what I was doing, or I could choose to shift away from that position of judgment that I'd held for so long and move to more of a neutral stance. When you're honest with yourself, you can admit that there are parts of your life that you like and parts you don't. You're not alone in this. You might think you're too lazy, not punctual, overweight, underweight, selfish, to this or to that. And you might be all of those things. But this line of thinking sends a message that you just don't measure up, that you're not enough. This type of self-judgment is normal, but it isn't helpful. Our brains evolved to keep us safe. In the, let's call it, caveman days, the human brain was all about keeping us safe. You had to stick with the pack, and you had to avoid being some crazy creature's lunch. That prehistoric brain that was geared towards these things, it's still lingering in our brains today. Our brains evolved and developed the ability to analyze situations critically. Don't get me wrong, it's an important skill, but not always helpful in terms of self-acceptance. There's no purpose in picking apart every aspect of your personality, appearance, or life. It's too easy to focus on those flaws. The critical part of your brain isn't helpful and it isn't supporting you. I love to sit on the porch on a clear evening and catch the sunset. Now, I'm sure you've caught a sunset or two, so I know that you can picture just how beautiful it can be. You don't judge it, do you? You see the shades of pink and blue and purple, and you're struck by its beauty. You don't shake your head and say, that pink doesn't work with that purple. You drink it in and you feel in awe of such a stunning view. That sunset mind is the mindset that you need to hold for yourself. So when you hear the itty bitty shitty committee turning up the volume and let that negative thought creep in, shift your mindset and start thinking about yourself through the lens of the sunset mind. If there's one thing that self-improvement and supporting yourself hinges on, it's your ability to take action, inspired action, regardless of any discomfort you feel. When you value something, then you'll do whatever it takes to protect it. Think about something that you value and how far you would go to support it. I'm compelled to stand up for those who are unable to stand up for themselves. So if I see someone being wronged, I'll step up and open my mouth. Sometimes regardless of the danger that may be a result of it. It's not always the wisest way to handle things, but it's something I can't help. I feel something bubbling up inside me when I witness somebody being wronged. I'm overwhelmed to the point that I simply cannot stand by and do nothing. Because for me, I value equity. However, when I'm the one on the short end of the stick, I'm not as quick to stand up and support myself. For some reason, it's easier to clearly recognize an unfair situation when it unfolds in front of me and involves other people. We seem to have the ability to be objective for others, but not so much for ourselves, and that has to change. We have to be willing to stand in the midst of a hurricane to support ourselves the same way that we would do for others. Emotions can also be another obstacle that can stand in our way, but they don't have to be. If you spend too much time listening to the itty bitty shitty committee, then you know how hard it is to put it on mute. Things like, I'm just too sensitive. My emotions are just too much to handle. I wish I didn't feel like this. I don't want to feel like this. I wish all of these emotions would just go away. And while emotions can be painful, they have a purpose. They act like little breadcrumbs just waiting for you to follow and discover what you care about. For example, let's pit guilt. Well, guilt sucks. But your guilt can lead you to fix unhealthy behavior, and it can also guide you to mend broken relationships. Parenthood is an excellent example of this. Now that our boys are adults, I've had numerous open conversations where I've shared what mistakes I feel that I've made, things that I wanted to be different. I want them to know that I was doing the best I could with what I had at the time. And what I found out is that while I painted one picture of the past, they had a completely different outlook. The guilt I felt helped me connect with my values, to see what I wanted and how I wanted to show up for all the people in my life. When we know better, we do better. And shying away from our emotions just isn't the answer. They may not always feel great, but if you tune into them, you'll see that they're there to guide you. By tapping into those emotions, you're leaning in and feeling them. By listening to what they're trying to tell you, you're acting in support of yourself. How can you do better in supporting yourself? Start by setting intentions that are in support of a better you and a better life. Think of an intention as a roadmap to chart your path. Let intention be the driving force for your visions and goals. Without intentions, then how do you know where you're going? When you do set an intention, make sure that it's positive and that you leave room to grow, and it's focused on the short term. If you want to have healthy relationships that are supportive, then you need to set and maintain strong boundaries. And this is a skill, and it does take time to learn. I continue to work on this. And it begins with having a deep understanding of what your limits are, and then setting and maintaining them. First, you actually have to identify what your boundaries are. If you don't know where you stand, then how can you set a strong boundary? Also, look at what you're feeling, because things like resentment and discomfort are two emotional red flags that pop up to tell you that your boundaries have been breached. And it's important to remember, people just won't know what your boundaries are. In some situations, you have to be upfront. And believe it or not, you don't have to have a conversation about your boundaries in every situation, because some relationships are easy to maintain those boundaries if it even comes up. And other relationships will need a conversation so you can share where you're coming from and what your needs are. The biggest pitfall to maintaining your boundaries are self-doubt, fear, and guilt. You can get nervous because you're anticipating people's reaction to your new boundaries. You may feel guilty about speaking up. So you need to give yourself permission to stay strong and commit to your boundaries. And as I shared earlier, self-awareness is key. Your boundaries revolve around honoring your feelings and emotions. You need self-awareness to be aware of those emotions and to be aware of when things change and when you're no longer honoring those emotions and boundaries. It's important that you know why you respond the way you do in certain situations or when faced with certain people. Now, I know we've talked about this a lot, and I'm going to keep talking about it. And I'm going to shout it from the rooftops. Self-care is not selfish. Self-care supports your mental and physical health, and it will empower you to maintain those strong boundaries. Don't underestimate the power of self-care. Honor your needs. Honor your feelings. Honor yourself. If you're someone that struggles with setting and maintaining boundaries, then consider reaching out to someone who you'll know that will support you. You can create boundaries, but unless you're strong enough to enforce them, then it won't really matter. The people around you can't read your mind, and it's up to you to assert yourself when you need to and let people know when they cross the line. Now, you don't have to rip off the Band-Aid. It's okay to take baby steps. To get really comfortable and hone this skill, start with just taking a small step. Start with a small boundary that isn't overly threatening and work up to the more challenging boundaries you're dealing with. Set a foundation of success in small steps and build on that. Another important part in supporting yourself is to identify and get rid of toxicity from your life. Because toxicity is the bad apple and it will spoil the bunch. It can show up in people, relationships, and behavior. If you have any type of toxicity in your life, then it's going to drag you down and keep you trapped. Now, a note on toxic people. They will control you. They take and they never give back. They disrespect your boundaries. No matter what, they're always right. They can be dishonest. They play the victim. They seldom take responsibility. And they drain you of all your energy. Does that sound familiar? Then why should you allow this in your life? You deserve better. So the question is, how do you get rid of it? Well, straight up, it might blow up in your face. But the good news is, well, you're cutting that person out of your life anyway. It may be a long process because, let's face it, if they didn't respect you then why are they magically going to respect your boundaries now? Remember, you don't have to justify your decision. This isn't an argument. It's not a negotiation. And for the people who are draining, but not exactly toxic, just create some distance and spend less time around them. When we're talking about toxic habits, this is going to depend on the type of habit that you're dealing with. And if it involves some sort of substance abuse, then you may need help from a professional. At the very least, reach out to a friend you trust and consider where you might be able to find the right support that is good for you. As you're changing and growing, you may also realize that you're no longer connecting with the people around you. Those well-meaning friends, they may also try to pull you back to where you were and who you used to be. That's why it's important to have a supportive group that will encourage you, support you, and offer guidance with any struggles and challenges you face. Just remember this: whatever you expect from your friends, you have to be willing to give it. If you expect them to listen to you after you've had a difficult day, then you should be prepared to hear their troubles. Talk about their feelings as often as you talk about yours. Reflect on what they have to say and ensure that you understand them. Now, a lot of people get caught up in exchanging stories. Sometimes it's more important that you listen and make it about their feelings, not necessarily your past experiences. And in the same light, pay attention to your feelings and emotions when you're around people. Are there people who energize you? Are there people that make you feel at ease? Are there people that make you feel uncomfortable? If you walk away from a social situation drained and anxious, then listen to your intuition and reassess that relationship. Don't feel bad about ending friendships because we can all outgrow them. People change. You're changing. You don't have to hold on to friendships that don't support you. Another thing that you may find on this journey is that it can be hard to believe in yourself. But when you do, there's no limit to possibilities. Unfortunately, society has conditioned us to doubt ourselves, and we need to get out of that mindset and squash self-doubt and fear. Everything in your life is a result of self-belief, or it can be in the result of self-doubt. And the more self-belief you have, the more successful you can be. When you were a child and someone asked you what you wanted to do when you grow up, how did you answer that question? You were probably asked it over 1,000 times. And then eventually, around 17 or 18, you had to make a decision. Your brain wasn't completely formed. You were still essentially a kid, but you had to make a major life decision. Now you're no longer that person, that kid. So decide what you want and go after it. Decide what direction you're going in. Now, you've probably heard the Carrie Underwood song, Jesus Take the Wheel. Now it's time for you to take the wheel. What brought you happiness in the past might not be enough to make you happy now. And there's no reason to write off your past. Just take control now. It's never too late to take control of your own life and happiness. Hey, I was 44 when I realized that I could take control of my life and pull it out of a tailspin. It's just the way it goes sometimes. Realizing that you need change, that it's no longer working, is probably what led you here today. No matter what pattern you're caught in, it's not too late to change. If you spent more time listening to yourself and not the itty bitty shitty committee, but your true self, your inner and guiding voice, then you would have realized years ago what you really wanted. Deep down, we always know. The problem is that we rarely listen to ourselves. The universe, God, or whoever is your higher power, it speaks to us to guide us and give us direction when we're off course. It comes as a whisper. And if you're not listening, it'll get louder. And if you resist, eventually, it's going to hit you over the head with a 2x4, which usually shows up as some sort of crisis. Now, we might find our way through that particular situation, but similar ones will repeat until we wake up and listen. Let me save you from the pain, or if you're the been there, done that, or you're still stuck in the middle of it, let me save you that pain. Ask yourself questions to dig down and connect with your true self. What do you want to do? Who do you want to be? What would your life look like? What is the ideal version of you? If you could be anyone, who would you be? This is where you need to take the leap of faith and just let go. Forget about any preconceived notions. Let go of assumptions. Let go of excuses, and open yourself to all the possibilities. You decide what's possible. Only you. The world and people around us have a lot to do with the beliefs that we hold. They have a lot to do with the doubt we feel. And even more to do with our compulsion to compare. You realize internally that there's doubt because this is where the unhelpful voice comes in. You think that change isn't possible. If you truly believed, then you would have done it a long time ago. Draw a line in the sand. Start by letting go of everything that's holding you back. Forget what you once thought was impossible. If you want to find real self-improvement, then you have to let go of all that crap and realize it's up to you to shape your perceptions. Your parents made their decisions based on their parents' or society's influence. That time is over. You get to be the person you want to be. You get to live your life how you want to live it. Don't let others limit you. It's all about choice. Which inner voice are you going to listen to? The one that's been holding you back? Or the one that knows what you really want? Find the assumptions, perceptions, and limiting beliefs that have been holding you back. Challenge them. Change them. And when you do, the world will open up with all of its infinite possibilities. Each and every one of us is different. Our journeys are different. For some, the process might take longer. But you're on your path. If you're looking at diving into your own self-improvement journey, join Nectar Growth Network, where our signature course is a journey of self-improvement. It's a self-paced program with a discussion group. We also have different areas of focus that you can tap into depending on what you're struggling with or what you want to grow and learn about. You're also going to be able to connect with coaches and, more importantly, people that are on the same journey as you. Now, right now, it is completely free to join. So come join us. You're worth it. You can find us at nectargrowth.com, necturegrowth.com. Make sure you check out the show notes. I'm going to have the links in there. And remember, at the time I'm recording this, I'm still having those pesky technical problems. So if you have any problems, keep trying back. Or you can always send me an email at hello@necturegrowth.com. Thank you for joining me today. Remember, your support of the roller coaster is always appreciated. If you can, leave a rating or review. It's going to help me reach more people. And share this episode and Nectar with your friends and family. Join me next time as we continue the conversation. And until then, I'm sending you my virtually distant hugs. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Roller Coaster Podcast. Want to chat or share your ideas about today's show? Pop me an email at hello@therollercoasterpodcast.com. Don't forget to connect with me on Facebook and Instagram at The Roller Coaster Podcast. Our theme song, Roller Coaster, was performed by The Lucky Setback. Audio editing by the one and only Jeff Quigley of Quigley Creator.
Life is like a roller coaster, baby, baby. I wanna ride, 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 ride. Life is like a roller coaster, baby, baby. I wanna ride, 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 ride. Roller coaster. Ride, ride. Roller coaster.